Are you a seasoned podcaster who is feeling that just on the edge of burnout feeling? Or maybe you're a new host who is struggling to maintain a regular, consistent schedule. And you feel like you are sacrificing your entire week just to get things done. What if you could create a podcast workflow that feels effortless, consistent, and can make the impact that you want it to make? That is what we are going to talk about today. Welcome to Podcasting Unlocked, the show for purpose-driven podcasters. I'm Alicia Galati, founder of Galati Media, and I'm here to share actionable strategies to help you amplify your message and grow your audience. I'm going to start with a quick story. When I first launched my very first podcast in 2018, one of the things that I came up against as I was nearing around 30 episodes was not only was I finding the topics very boring because I was doing a podcast that was very closely related to my day job. And I found that I did not like talking about this topic on a podcast format while also doing it for my day job. Now, podcasting, I don't know, there's something different about it where I'm talking about podcasting and I'm podcasting about podcasting and I have a podcast production agency. There's just something different about this topic where I am now at over 230 episodes, which is wild to me. But something about when I was podcasting about things that were in my day job, my corporate day job, it just felt really boring. But it wasn't just that. I also realized that I was running out of pre-recorded episodes. And every week I was like, oh, wait, I need an episode for this week and I have nothing. Great. Now I'm running around trying to come up with a topic real quick, trying to get this out. What in the world am I doing with it? I haven't even shared the last 3 episodes that went live. I was feeling really overwhelmed. Now, I think part of it was that the topics were I was finding them very boring at that point, but I did not have a good podcast workflow in place, which I did very different with my next podcast. I actually created an SOP, which is a standard operating procedure, which I did in my day job. I created tons of operating procedures and did that for the podcast specifically that I did with my sister back in 2019. And the thing that really worked was once I had that workflow, it was so much easier to get the things done because it felt like less of I feel like I need to do all these things and more of this is my checklist and here are the things that I need to get done. Podcasting can take such an emotional toll on us as hosts, especially if we're doing it all ourselves. And I understand and am very open with the fact that I now do not do anything else for my own podcast because I know myself and I know that my podcast is going to be very much like the cobbler's kids' shoes, where I am not going to take care of my podcast the way I know I need to. And so I have my team, thank goodness for them, where I record and then they handle the rest. But one, it showcases how my team works and I'm able to use it as a representation for how my agency works. But I also am able to work on other things and simply focus on recording and then they handle the rest. But when it's left up to me to promote or to share things, I don't always do it. But I understand what it's like to be the only person who is entrusted with these duties, and having a workflow is going to help you create consistent content. Now, we have an episode that's going live in, I want to say October, with Shanti Joy Gold. I highly recommend listening to that if you are also feeling like, look, I am maybe moving from season 1 to season 2, and I'm thinking about switching up the cadence of my episodes, and I'm feeling a little overwhelmed because in that episode, Shanti talks about how she went from having every other week episodes to now monthly. And once we stopped hitting record, Shanti said, honestly, I feel so much relief now that I'm going to once a month. I don't feel as stressed out. I have 3 episodes already recorded, and I feel so excited about the episode that's coming and that I have enough space to share it and promote it. So I want to give you some grace that this is your podcast. You get to decide what it looks like to be consistent, right? We have an episode previously, we'll make sure we have it linked in the show notes, where I talked about how if content is king and consistency is queen, then the key is your capacity, because no one talks about that. And there's so many people who are these big business owners and they're like, everyone should have a podcast and you should be podcasting every single week. Then if you're not doing that, then you're doing it wrong. And no, that's not how this works. Your capacity dictates what that consistency looks like. Period. No one else can tell you what you can or cannot achieve in a week, in 2 weeks, in a month. So give you some grace with that. But let's go ahead and talk through some workflow ideas and creating a sustainable workflow that's going to work best for you. Now, if you're wondering, like, all right, how do I create a workflow, or give me an idea of an example workflow? I would highly recommend going to galatimedia.com/workflow. There you will find actual workflow workshop where I talk through a workflow. You will find a workflow downloadable. There's plenty of resources that I have available for actually creating a workflow that makes sense. But here we're just talking more high level topics. But if you're wondering, like, what order do I need to do things in and when should I be marketing it, definitely recommend checking out galatimedia.com/workflow, or you can go to helpmypod.com, and under the freebies, you'll be able to find that there as well. All right. So first things first, let's go ahead and audit our time. If we are feeling overwhelmed, if we're feeling frustrated, where is the majority of our time going? And are those things that we can offload? Most likely, if you are someone who is going a little heavier on the editing, then editing is taking the majority of your time. If you are someone who is like, look, I'm just going to keep the mistakes in there, who cares? Let's keep it moving, then it might be the graphics or writing the show notes. I find that for everyone, that thing that drives them a little nuts is different for every single person. So in the episode where I talked about with Shanti Joy Gold, she talked about how she hates writing show notes, how difficult that is. So, okay, maybe you need to create an AI prompt that's going to make that part of the workflow smoother for you. But where is your time going? Where's the majority of your time? And what are those tasks that feel like they're just grinding your gears and you are so done doing them? And if you could stop doing them today, you would have done that yesterday. Next, I want you to consider batching. Batch your recording, batch your outlining, and batch your content repurposing so that you can save time and that mental energy that feels really overwhelming. I also recommend that if you are trying to create a sustainable workflow and you're someone who's open to using AI, then use some AI prompts. We have a resource. If you go to helpmypod.com, there is a resource there that is 80 plus podcast AI prompts specifically across the board for podcasters. So we have everything from creating show notes to creating blogs to creating emails to, oh no, I need a rebrand. What are some things that we need to do there? And we're going to talk rebrands in a few weeks as well. So any of those prompts are going to help streamline that process for you. Having templates are my favorite, favorite thing. We have a resource for that too. If you're finding that you are feeling frustrated with emailing your guests and letting them know, hey, your episode is live. And every time you go to write that email, you're like, I don't know what to say here. I have a product for that as well on email templates for managing your guests, right? Like all of these are things that we can create templates around to make this a lot easier. And some of these things we actually don't need to be doing. So in order to create a sustainable workflow, one, use AI if you're open to it, batch record and batch prep and batch repurposing or scheduling your content to save you time and mental energy. Leverage those templates that we talked about, and also make sure that these are things that are actually moving your podcast forward. If you are someone who is trying to use your podcast as a way to turn your guests into leads, then maybe posting 3 times on social media is not the thing that's going to help you achieve your goal. Get clear on that goal first, and then you'll be able to understand how to create a sustainable workflow that's actually going to help you achieve your goal. Remember also that done is better than perfect. That's not to say that you should not be promoting your episode, okay? I'm just caveat here because I think that sometimes we think, oh, this is a blanket permission to not do the things that I don't want to do. No, if you're wanting to grow your show or you're wanting to get people to engage with your content, you got to create the content and you've got to tell people that it actually exists. But you do not have to strive for perfect in every single thing and every single part of your podcast. That is going to hold you back from putting the content out there. If you find that you are struggling with recording your episodes, maybe you need to have an outline. Maybe you need to have a script. What are some ways that you can make sure that each of the parts are set up for success? If you're finding that you're spending way more time on editing, do they really need to be that edited? And that is coming from someone who promises to listen to every word when we are editing our clients' podcasts. But are they going to be 100% top level NPR production level? Most likely not. But we will take out the things that don't make sense for the episode. We'll take out those side tangents that are maybe not great for the listener. And we'll take out those flubs, those ums, those ers, those false starts, etc. Those are all things that we'll do. And we'll make sure we have a good episode that is going to go out to your audience. I would say a great episode, but it's not going to be perfect. So give yourself some grace around that idea of perfect. I also want you to, in order to avoid burnout, and I talked about batching a little bit before, but I would like you to consider the idea of taking a more seasonal approach to your show. And I believe I've talked about this on the show before in different contexts, but take a seasonal approach. Even if you have an ongoing show, what does that mean? So here I have an ongoing show, but I really like to take my summers of not recording too many guest interviews. So what does that mean for me? That means that I block off quite a bit of my summer for interviews specifically for the podcast, and I'm recording very heavily in the spring. That also means that my solo episodes are recorded at the end of the month before they go live. So I kind of have those windows and those breaks in between so that I don't feel so overwhelmed when it comes to recording and talking and being on my podcast. Because I have found that if I am constantly creating content, that doesn't give me space to be creative or to come up with new ideas or concepts. And I want to have that space to keep the energy and the excitement of this podcast alive. So maybe that's something to consider if you are feeling like I'm right on the cusp of burnout. And how do I not get to this place again? Okay, maybe we get through it first, but then we create systems and we've got workflows in place. All right, now that I feel good, what are some things that I can do later to prevent this from happening again? Remember that a sustainable workflow is going to be a process. What is working for you right now might not work for you in 3 months or in a year. So make sure that you give yourself some space to have some flexibility. Now, my challenge for you this week is that I want you to perform a time audit on your podcast. Maybe it's this month. So that way for people who have monthly shows, that gives you space to do this action as well. And I want you to do that time audit to look at what your podcast workflow is and see where are you spending the majority of your time? Where are you feeling really sticky in this workflow? And what are some things that you can do to alleviate that stress or that frustration or that overwhelm that happens in those spaces? If you're looking for support around this, like I said, we have lots of resources. We have templates available. I have a workflow workshop that you can attend that's free, that you can check that out. I also have those AI prompts that you can use. Or if you're someone who needs to verbally process it, I highly recommend going to helpmypod.com and booking a one-off strategy session. with that, you're able to then talk things out with me. We can see what is going to work best for you, and I can give you my specific recommendations based on your specific problems. All right. Until next time, make sure you take action and happy podcasting.